Alrighty, there we go. Sorry about the delay. Welcome back to another thrilling installment of Fraggoth Reads. I'm Fraggoth, and today we're gonna read more of Cytine by the inestimable CJ Cherryh. Boy, I hope she's still alive and kicking. If you're out there, keep on keeping on. We love you here. I'm a fan. So previously on, Ari has moved in to Alpha Wing, her newly constructed Alpha Wing. She has moved just about everybody who she wants close to her in, with the exception of anybody from out at Fargon. She says, Hola, soy tu fan desde Rosario, Argentina. Nice. Gracias por tus lecturas. Anytime, if I'm understanding that correctly. Anytime. Thank you for tuning in. Truly, I do have a globe. Y'all are from all across the globe, and I love it. I love it. So anyway, so she moves in. So yeah, like what's his name? That she wants to get back from Fargon. Valerie. So Valerie isn't back yet because it's 6 months for the message to go out, 6 months for a message and or people to come back. Despite the fact that there is faster than light travel in the in this particular setting, it is not. You're still dealing with distances and significant time of travel involved. Did I get all the images in? I should probably check in the slideshow. I'm pretty sure I did, yeah. That should be all of them. So I added a bunch of images from this, and I forgot to post it on the Discord. I'll do that later. It's like a blog post someone did. That collects a bunch of images of the Burroughs Welcome Center in... my gut is saying one of the Carolinas, but don't quote me on that. My internet browser is being stupid, so I can't look it up right now. In any case, I'll post a link to it in the browser. Anyway, so she's having... she gets all these people there. It's very extravagant. Justin Grant basically gets shanghaied there. Like, she leaves him a note, and she's like, hey, kind of moved all your stuff into the new apartment. Here, just swing through the door here and ask for a key, and you'll be good to go. He's just like, this is fine. I'll live with this. It's weird, but better this than the previous administration, basically, is his point of view. So so she has a welcoming party, basically, and things are going great. You know, Sam introduces his, I don't know if she's his fiancée or just his girlfriend. I forget her name, Maria or something. Let me double check here. I don't think she's tremendously important, but it's nice that she exists. In case you were wondering, CJ Cherryh's work does pass the Bechdel test. I shouldn't have to say. Maria Wilkins Teague. There we are. I can't believe I got that right. I'm terrible with names. Anyway, unless they're fictional, then I'm actually pretty good. It's weird. It's sad. Anyway, so Sam's introducing his girlfriend, and then Florian whisks her aside and says, hey, we just got word somebody blew up a precip tower at Strassenberg. You know, that new city you're building to be part of a large experimental control area. Yeah. So somebody not only managed to get there, they managed to get there with explosives and managed to take down one of the precip towers. Now, fortunately, no one's actually hurt, as far as anyone can tell. Not even presumably the bombers. But the fact that someone was able to do it is rather troubling, given that it would require considerable resources just to keep it covered up. Since it's like hundreds of kilometers away from Rezun and any other habitation. So you'd have to take the river, probably, since flights are all tracked and monitored. River travel is somewhat trickier to monitor, apparently. So it had to be very, very well executed, as well as have probably someone on the inside at either Rezun or Rezun Sec security. So it's rather mystifying how this could have occurred. So she and Yanni are very concerned about this, as well they probably should be. And so because, people are getting blown up and objects are getting blown up and Jordan's name keeps popping up, Justin is like, I've got to see my dad. I got to make sure he's okay. I gotta see if he's being kidnapped or not. So he goes, eventually finds him. He's at a bar or a restaurant. Finds him, confronts him, gives him more information than Jordan has had. I forget what exactly he tells him. He does give him some information, like how someone blew up a precip tower, and people are getting murdered. So Jordan actually, perks up his ears and listens. Doesn't have much of a fight, at least not as much as he usually does. But as they are leaving, Jordan gets arrested by Rezun Sec. They have him up against the wall, and Justin is like, no, that's not going to work for me. Not going to have it. You can't arrest this man. He's done nothing. And Justin would have been arrested too, but he had backup in the form of two security people who are part of Ari's staff, whose job it is to keep Justin and Grant safe. And they basically confront the Rezun Sec guys and say, nope, we have a higher authority, and you're not going to arrest these people. So Justin and Jordan both get away with that. Jordan gets moved into Justin's old Wing 1 apartment, which is a bit better than his previous digs. And that's pretty much the end of it, I think. That's most of it. Anyway, we now move on to Book 3, Section 4, which we'll be banging out today. It's a shorter section. And then we get to Section 5. I think Section 5 is the last section, and it is like the entire rest of the book, if memory serves. Yeah, it'll be a couple installments worth. Oh, no, there is a Section 6. I take it back. Section 5 will be a couple installments, though, at any rate. I think it is safe to say. Yeah, Section 6 is pretty short. All right, so we're going to get through Section 4. Give me a sec to slurp down some more water, and we'll get on our way. Book 3, Section 4, Chapter 1, July 17, 2424, 0827 hours. 22 weeks, and Gerard was growing a pancreas. Not so dramatic as a heart or lungs, but it meant he would be ever able
He would be ever after able to digest food, to produce insulin and deal with sugars and proteins, and thereby regulate his body chemistry. Not as dramatic as a heart, not as romantic, but just as life essential, and very, very important to a man who'd value good health and enjoy his table as much as Gerard would. He had gotten a bit fuzzy, meanwhile. Body hair had started. His skin was too big for him. He was wrinkled as dried fruit, but he actually had gotten lips, and had tooth buds. They'd be squarish teeth when they finally came in, the two center ones a bit prominent. But those wouldn't be needed for months and months yet. The bones were still growing, and teeth now got their share of calcium and other nutrients. He and his companions were getting much more complex. Book 3, Section 4, Chapter 2, July 18, 2424, 1829 hours. Disappointing, the lack of progress on the Patil case and the Tew business. Ari had a small soiree for at least some of the youngers. Yanni and Justin were at dinner elsewhere. Sam had gone off to Strassenberg. She'd urged him to be very, very careful, and she diverted two of her own security to go up there with him and make sure neither Sam nor Pavel did anything rash. Maria had stayed here. Barracks living was no place for Maria, Sam said, and she'd take care of the place. But Maria would have been lost in a council of war, so she didn't get the dinner invitation tonight. Sam would have come, however, and they missed him. Tommy and Misha and Mika came. If Yevgenia Wojtkowski, who had lost no time dumping the boyfriend who had jeopardized her chance to stay with the group, she was there. Will Morley arrived, and of course Amy and Matty. They had a simple supper and drinks after, and they sat under the fish wall, which cast a rippling light on everything, and tried to absorb the complex detail Catelyn and Florian told them in the general what's going on briefing. Namely, Raphael's lot had turned up a list of 20 contacts Patil had had with shady connections. Nobody yet knew anything but rumor on Anton Clavery, but Regenesis was still digging, and the Tew autopsy was still doubtful as to murder, but on circumstantial grounds the death was just too connected to the Patil murder to be anything but. Meaning they're good, Catelyn concluded regarding the perpetrators, and that means they're not amateurs. Or it means they meant to kill Tew the hard way, Florian said, and ended up just stressing him to death. But there are no marks, no bruises, except the livor mortis that happens when a body... Ugh, Matty said, and waved the information away. We don't need that much detail. Blown out a window is nicer, Misha said. 12 stories down to a cooling tower. Nasty, Tommy said, so we don't know they weren't squeamish. That's not highly helpful, Amy said, as if you're going to commit a murder and squeamishness matters. It does probably add into the not amateur theory, Florian said. Getting into Planus also does that. And the tower at Strassenberg, Will said, which is organization. Considerable logistics, Florian said. Regenesis Labs traced the explosives to a mining company at Svetlansk. That's no surprise. The mode of delivery is uncertain. No boats are reported missing from Svetlansk, none scheduled to be in the vicinity on that day. But the explosives might have been planted earlier, Catelyn said, and detonated by timer or remote. Proximity detonation would have been possible, but it's not really logical to do it that way, and it doesn't seem they did. The site was an inconvenient remove, and an inconvenient height above the Strassenberg complex. One other thing of note, Catelyn said. We also did have a boat out and in motion at that time. It came from Moriville, visited Svetlansk, and came back. Long trip, Stacy said. Especially long if they came from Moriville past Strassenberg, Ari said. Up current, Yevgenia supplied. supplied, and, Ari said, didn't refuel at Rezun docks. That caught the attention of the rest. Big gas tank, Mika said. Did somebody do that? Yes, Florian said. Rezun Sek is wondering about fuel drops along the way. The boat was in fact on its way back from Svetlansk when the tower blew. Raphael is trying to check currents and times. Downriver's naturally faster. The time could work. It's a large boat, a rental, which makes it more suspicious. It's easy to piggyback in more fuel tanks without altering the boat. So they didn't want to refuel at Rezun so we wouldn't have records? Maddie said. Something like, Ari said. That's the lead we're following, at least. The best we've got. A link, who knows, from Novgorod to Moriville, past us to Svetlansk, for people wanting to blow up the tower, Tommy said. At least they didn't get help here at Rezun. Who was aboard? Misha asked. Can we tell? The rental was made by one Sarah Penny Esker. Never heard that name on any list. Amy said. None of us have. Ari said. It searches to an Esker line resident in Novgorod, some employed by Novgorod Transport, Penny Esker being currently employed by the Public Library Data Archive Department. Where Patil used to lecture. Former student? Tommy asked. Way out of her field. No university connections, not on any of the watch-it lists, but they wouldn't use somebody who flashed red lights. Penny Esker seems to be a nobody so far as criminal records, which is the sort, if you were up to no good, that you'd prefer to use, especially to rent boats. Florian says, and I agree, she wouldn't have been on the boat. Why did they do it at all, though? Amy asked. Blow up a tower. Paxer nonsense? Maybe, Ari said. Maybe something about the site leaked, but that sort of incident doesn't do the Paxers any good. They'd want some sort of media coup, blowing up something of mine, coupled with revealing I'm some sort of junior megalomaniac out founding towns at random, building secret laboratories and siphoning money out of Rezun to do it. They want publicity. They want public dislike of me in particular. What the bombers actually got out of this business was my attention, and a slowdown of about 2 weeks in the Strassenberg build. It could scare people, though, Tommy said. It could scare Fitzpatrick. It could be aimed at him and his company. The man in charge of the construction company, the man Sam was up there working for. She nodded, not liking that version of it. But it was indeed possible. Did we do anybody out of a contract they wanted? Amy asked. 4-Star was closest bidder besides Fitzpatrick. Worth checking, Catelyn said, since 4-Star is working next door to us in Wing 1. They've already passed a security check, but a second one wouldn't hurt. Investigate Svetlansk Mining and the rest of the Svetlansk operations that handle explosives, Ari said. How many companies are working up there? 4, Catelyn said. Probably we won't find anything blinking on and off with coloured lights, Ari said, but if we continue asking questions, individual by individual, something may turn up. Have we got any investigative people up on scene? Misha asked. I know Sam is, but... That's the other thing, Amy said. Sam is up there, and he's at risk if this gets more serious than it is. Rezun Sek's going to be investigating, Ari said. Already is, but that all lands on Hicks's desk, and it's clumsy, and it's slow, and it's damned useless if we need 3 layers of authorization to stop a boat on the river. We do have Sam's bodyguard. This is what doesn't get out. He's got non-uniformed security with him. The 2 I sent with him aren't trained as engineers. They're taking tape on construction, but that's not what they really do. So, yes, we do have our own investigation on site. The problem is, they aren't to leave Sam to go chase anything, and I don't want Sam anywhere near a problem. I'm glad they're with him, though, Maddie said. I have a question, Tommy said. Are we sending Rezun Sek all this info we are gathering? Not, Ari said, until they give us better results than they have in the last 2 weeks. You don't have confidence in Hicks, Amy said. Ari shook her head. I don't know if it's malfeasance, she said, but it's not total competence. This is what bothers me. Uncle Gerard was a demanding sort. Hicks is making mistakes. Jumping on Justin was one. We're not getting things he promised us. We know we're not. So, no, I'm not trusting him. But Yanni is all right, Maddie said. I think Yanni's all right, Ari said. But, so you know, yes, we're running down all the civil police reports and university police reports on the Patil case. We're having a little trouble getting at Planis. Tew's had a lot of tendrils that go under defense doors, and we can't get everything we'd like from there. Same trouble in Novgorod? Amy asked. To a certain extent, Ari said. Patil's ties to citizens and defense are a problem where it comes to access. The fact Patil was actually registered in science opens up a lot of files to us that we otherwise couldn't get. But most of her scientific research is classified, and not just anybody can get at it. Yanni being proxy counselor, he technically can. He's got a lot. I've got that. I've asked for more, and if he gets it, I can get it. But what we've gotten so far is a complete disappointment. I hoped I'd find keywords and names that might be useful, but there's nothing. A lot of correspondence with Councillor Corraine. We can get her side of it, and it's nothing startling. She complained significantly about crazies at her lectures this last winter. One letter to the Dean of Science asked that enrollment in her courses not be available in virtuality. It already wasn't. And that enrollment be interview only, with a background check, and no auditing her classes, which they did implement for the next session. That was before she agreed to take the job on Fargon. I tried to get the actual interview lists of people she'd enrolled, but that wasn't available. Corraine could get it, and I might write to him, or get Yanni to, but I don't think it's too likely the people we're after would be in any way up to her coursework. Sounds as if she was worried, at least, Will said. Well, she was being made an icon for the Paxes, Maddie said. I don't blame her. But her restricting who got to her classes didn't help her much, did it? Anything on that name? Mika asked. On Anton Clavery? Ari said. Almost 100% it's a pseudonym, maybe a shared identity. And here's another place we don't have all we want from Hicks. We know there's undercover work going on. And Yanni's dragging his feet about getting Hicks to divulge what's out there. Undercover? Misha asked. Infiltrating the Paxers, Ari said, but that's a deep secret, supposedly. There's no report I've been able to ferret out. Hicks has it stored somewhere, and I'm wondering if it's in a disconnected computer. I'm going to corner Yanni on it and insist. What generally bothers me since the Big Bang at Strassenberg is that there's nothing wrong in Novgorod. The Paxers have been uncharacteristically quiet for the last 2 weeks. Likewise, the Rocher crowd. Just silent. Rocher crowd. Just silent. When something that disorganized suddenly does, or doesn't do something, altogether, that's worrisome. Somebody may have pushed a button, and we didn't think anybody had that much control. Anton Clavery, Tommy said. Misha dug an elbow in his side, saying, You're making a bogeyman. Maybe we've got one, Ari said, and the little flurry of laughter died. I just don't like any signs of coordination in that lot. Who could get them all to face the same direction? Amy asked. How could they do it? Fear, Catelyn said. A few might die. The rest would understand. The whole gathering got quiet for a breath or two. Catelyn dealt in things like that in a level of seriousness that had never quite gotten to the group, not even when they'd brought down Dennis. There's reason to think some have died, Ari said. People have accidents in Novgorod. That statistic's always there. But the number of crazy letters on certain boards we monitor has fallen right off. It's just a silence. That's all we can finger. And I want information out of Yanni, and I'm hesitant to press for it because I don't want alarms to go off in any system watching me. So I'm not making a great fuss. And no, I'm not easy about Sam being where he is, but I have a code arranged that will bring him back fast if we have to. She sighed and leaned back in her chair, ankles crossed. I don't want to move yet. I don't want to until I have enough information. I don't want to call Sam back on a just-in-case, because it's important what he's doing. It's his job with Fitzpatrick that's at issue here. All the same, somebody killed the first Ari, Amy said, grimly, and we're not going to lose the second. I appreciate that vote, Ari said with a little laugh. Was it Dennis that did it? Amy asked, and that didn't deserve a laugh. Did we get them all? Or do we have to worry about Hicks and Yanni now? I hope not, she said, but I think about it. I do think about it. What matters, Catelyn said, isn't all who, it's why. Does the why still exist? There was another small silence. Power, Amy said. It was about power. The question is on what scale? Jordan wanting out, or Dennis wanting in. It was a little creepy, sitting and listening to your best friends figuring who'd want to kill you. There's a long list, Ari said. Power's one. Revenge, in her case, maybe. But no, I don't count it solved. I'm quite sure Jordan didn't do it. You moved him into Wing 1. Justin did, actually, and Jordan's behaving himself pretty well. He wrote a tape set that's driving me crazy because I think there isn't a bug in it. I'm sure he's laughing. And if there is and I just fail to find it... She let her voice trail off and gave a shrug. Better in Wing 1, which is watched, than over in Ed with all the traffic. Construction's starting in Wing 1, remodeling all over the wing. It's not going to be very active for the next year, but by the time we're through, it'll be up to the standard we hope to set. So, for that matter, we'll Strassenberg. Every place we build, we do it right the first time. Are we sure about that company? Will asked. 4-Star, which is doing Wing 1? They got a good contract and don't have to live in bunkers. Soft job, comparatively. They shouldn't be discontent, but we'll have a deeper look, as Catelyn says. So are you going to go after remodeling Ed next? It's not as bad as Wing 1, Ari said, and shifted in her seat, thinking. I won't have that much time, that much budget. We're going to have to earn our way into the next major project, though. We cost a lot, Mika said. A whole lot. This place is incredible. You earn it, Ari said. You're important. Whatever you're doing, you see things, you hear things, you say things. Just never, never forget you're tied to me more conspicuously than ever in your lives. Be careful. Just be very, very careful about getting into situations, going places alone. That's the price you pay. That's the price you pay for this place. Don't be alone down at the docks, down in the town, down where the security is just a little less. Let my staff know where you'll be, when you'll be. Just a convenience for Florian and Catelyn. Wes. Oh, sorry. Just a convenience for Florian and Catelyn, Wes and Marco. They track you, in case you've never noticed. Who'd care, Evgenia laughed, if I went to my hairdresser? We know you're there, though, Ari said soberly, and if you didn't show up, we'd know. You'd get a call. If you didn't answer it, someone would come looking. I don't say it'll always be like this, but it will for a while. Expect it. Expect nerves to be pretty taut. Is there a reason we should know? Maddie asked. Just politics, Ari said. The council election's about to come down to the wire. They're going to read the results probably on the 25th. We think Sperlin's got it, but if Khalid should win, that's a problem. Two different philosophies in the military. Khalid's not that careful about observing registration when he goes in after information, sees no reason he shouldn't be able to inquire into science, or citizens, or just anybody he doesn't like. Particularly science. Don't get me started on Khalid. But Sperlin's got it. Safely so, we think. He'd have carried Fargon by a big majority, no question, after the new Raysoon build at Fargon passed in council. All those jobs going there, and Sperlin was supporting Jacques voting for it in council, while Khalid was up on the station and not really doing much of anything. Unfortunately, the vote was already in progress on Fargon before much of that news had gotten there. Unfortunate timing, but we're hearing there was some favourable impact during the last 2 days of the balloting. Whether any large number of military was excited enough to go in and change their vote before the deadline, I don't know, but we think the news did help Sperlin. But is there that much military at Fargon? Misha asked, and Tommy dug an elbow back this time.
The whole big hospital installation, Tommy said, which I bet is big enough.
It's a classified major lot of votes, say, partly because it's supporting an operation out at Eversnow. Trust me, it is large. Eyes flickered, simultaneous registry of a tidbit of information on the existing universe.
The whole military base out there, Amy said. Too covert to vote?
So far, Ari said, they can't admit they exist, so they can't vote.
You know, when Eversnow goes into official operation, Amy said, that's going to take nearly 2 years to get a vote through.
Going to matter who's proxy councillor designate when that happens, Ari said. It already does, but it's going to matter a lot more. I like that argument. I'll use it on Yanni the next time we have a fight about Eversnow. If humankind goes stringing off down Yanni's route to new stars, we're going to have elections that last a lifetime. God, that's more entertainment than the universe needs.
Just cross our fingers about Khalid, Amy said. I certainly hope you're right.
I hope I am too, she said, and meant it, passionately. I like how they're talking about like 6 months and a week turnaround time for voting at a station that's at, say, Fargon. So you've got like an election cycle that lasts something like a year or something. Actually, 6 months plus 6 months. So 12 months travel time plus a week for voting, plus probably some general other time. So yeah, like a 2-year election cycle. The actual voting part is certainly longer than we have in, say, the United States, but like it seems like the election churn is pretty much constant here, which is exhausting. I mean, if there's one single thing that removes any will from anyone to want to get involved in voting, it's the fact that like it just never ends. Not the fact that neither party seems to be doing anyone much good at this point. I don't feel that's a terribly political statement. I believe that's more of an observation of fact. Book 3, Section 4, Chapter 3, July 18, 2424, 1829 hours. The office all right? Jordan had asked for openers.
Fine,
Justin said guardedly. And all through dinner they hadn't talked politics, for once. Jordan talked about psych sets. They, Jordan, Grant, Paul, and Justin, talked for 2 hours about designs and sets and things that would bore the adjacent tables in Farrell's to unconsciousness. It was the best evening they'd had since Jordan had come home. And it didn't end in a fight. They walked back via the open air, in balmy night temperatures, walked into Wing 1, which lately smelled of paint and plaster, and continued the conversation for a moment in front of the lift, which they hadn't called. Last night you'll be buying dinner, Jordan said. I'm applying to go on salary.
Seriously?
That wasn't the right word. Justin tried to find one, and didn't. I'd expect better than that. Excellent news. Grant supplied. I'm taking refresher tape, Jordan said. I'm trusting not to be mind-bent. So far, so good. I'm trusting not to be mind-bent. So far, so good.
I can't tell you how glad I am to hear it, Justin said. Dad, that's great.
All I have to get, Jordan said, is your little dear's approval. That wasn't so great. You don't think I can?
What have you sent her? Dad, this isn't some game, is it?
Why in hell would you think it's a game? I don't think it's a game.
Dad. He stopped himself, held up a hand. I'm glad. All right? Oh, that's a period. I'm glad. All right.
Good, Jordan said, and punched the lift call button. You can talk her into it.
Dad, either your designs will or I can't.
Oh, I'm sure of my design. I'm very sure of it. How sure are you?
Damn it. Just one evening. Just one evening. Can we manage not to have a quarrel?
The car opened. The car arrived. Opened. Jordan stepped in. So did Paul. Want to come upstairs and explain why you won't back it?
I will, damn it. I have to read it first.
Those two statements are contradictory, Jordan said. Make up your mind, can't you? Jordan had let the button go. The doors shut. The car left, upward bound, and their way was back to the U and the Alpha Wing gateway.
Damn,
Justin said. He has improved, however, Grant said, and they walked in silence. Which lasted until they'd gone through security and ridden their lift up to their floor in Alpha Wing. It lasted until they reached their own front door across from hers and reached their bedrooms and started getting ready for bed.
Damn, damn, and damn, Justin said. Why is he like that?
You're the closest to his psych set, Grant said. At foundational level, at least.
Not lately. Ari works the deep sets, doesn't she?
Maybe he's trying to find out what she did, Grant said. Sounds like a probe to me.
Meaning he's redirected his plan, not his objectives, and he's still a bastard.
Meaning, perhaps, he wants to know if that indefinable born-man flux still bends in the direction he understands in you. He knows you don't like conflict. That's very different than he is. And, forgive me, he doesn't believe the impulse doesn't exist in you. He's fishing for it.
Don't like conflict. Hell, I hated it when I was 10.
True, Grant said, and you grew up with a man who has to have it. What's that going to do to an impressionable young mind?
Make my life hell.
Do you want my opinion?
Definitely.
Jordan had you born. He started out trying for psychogenesis, and when you got out of the cradle and onto 2 feet, he came face to face with his genes, his looks, his temper, which he doesn't control well. You two used to scare hell out of me when we were 7. You had his temper. He had his temper. Oh, you had his temper. He had his temper. And when we were 7, he gave you me, and you had to hold it in because I got upset, and he told you so. Nasty little trick, that was. As I faintly understand the rules of born-man combat, that was fairly underhanded. It assured he could always win a fight. And we know he has one other quirk. He likes to fight, but he has to win all the fights, or he's going to be very unhappy. I can just go null. I did, if you recall, at certain times.
I remember.
Impossible for his replicate, however.
I'd try to calm him down to get you out of it.
So it wasn't just Ari had a go at remodeling the Warwick psyche. He'd already blinked at creating his own double. He couldn't take the arguments. You were 7, and he just had to win, didn't he, or burst a blood vessel? It was certainly a point. He gazed at Grant, who had a momentarily earnest look, saw at least what made a certain grim sense. He ties you in knots, Grant said, and you remain the one that can return the favor. If you ever would, but you never let that shoe drop. In the meanwhile, he ran afoul of another man who didn't like to lose. Gerard, who hated him. And what the Nyes did to him was make him afraid for Paul. He stared off across the room, seeing Gerard and one of those small, nasty rooms. Terror when he didn't know where Grant was.
You think he's lying about starting work again?
He may try. He may be trying. Or he may be trying something else. You're the great unanswered question to him, more than she is. He thinks he knows what she is, and he's likely wrong. And the fact he might actually see that is going to frustrate him more, because he can't prove what he thinks is true. Oh, geez, okay, I see what's going on. I'm going to take Grant's little paragraph here from the top. We're just running into a combination of CJ Cherryh syntax paired with CJ Cherryh talking syntax, dialogue syntax, paired with like a couple awkward line breaks. That threw me. It's still coherent. There is meaning here.
You think he's lying about starting work again?
He may try. He may be trying. Or he may be trying something else. You're the great unanswered question to him, more than she is. He thinks he knows what she is, and he's likely wrong. And the fact he might actually see that is going to frustrate him more, because he can't prove what he thinks is true is actually true. You completely frustrate him. You're supposed to be him. Never mind he took the one step, reining in your very nicely adrenalized temper, that assured you never would be him. It's always amazed me how intelligent born men, designers, can flux that far, that they can do something they know absolutely flies in the face of the result they want to get, and never expect it not to work out the way they want. If I designed an ASCII set like that, what would you tell me?
That it's a conflict.
Beyond a simple conflict, board man. It's a roaring great deep set / psych set mismatch. He heaved a breath, found himself mentally shying away from the concept of going after Jordan with the same energy Jordan used on him. Because, damn it, he knew that it would be a blow-up to end all blow-ups.
It's beyond a simple conflict. It's that two Jordans can't occupy the same space. Neither could two Aries. Psychogenesis works if one of the participants is dead.
Please don't go that far.
You're saying it's irresolvable.
Oh, shit, I had them flipped. Never mind. It's beyond a simple conflict. Wait, one sec. There's a page transition here, and I think okay. It's beyond a simple conflict. Okay, here we go. Grant, Justin, Grant, Justin, Grant, Justin. Okay. Yes. All right, I had it right. He heaved a breath, found himself mentally shying away from the concept of going after Jordan with the same energy Jordan used on him, because, damn it, he knew that would be a blow-up to end all blow-ups.
It's beyond a simple conflict. It's that two Jordans can't occupy the same space. Neither could two Aries. Psychogenesis works if one of the participants is dead.
Please don't go that far.
You're saying it's irresolvable.
That the temper is there, that you either defuse it so it doesn't bother you at all, or you and he will continue to go at each other over the most minor of differences.
That's grim.
I, however, have faith in you, Grant said. You're better than he is, and you have no need to prove it to him. Just don't let him suspect it, is all. He's competitive, if you've missed that.
But how can I live with him?
That, Grant said, is going to be a lasting problem. He didn't sleep well. He lay staring at the water-rippled ceiling, trying to find some null point in the fractal patterns, but his mind was awake and racing. He laid out mental patterns for a living. He cured ASCII problems when something had gone wrong. He'd never cured his own, which was that gut-deep knot that happened when he got into an argument. He'd always assumed, because that was the watershed point of his life, that the first Ari had set that into him, a flinch away from anger. But Grant had handed him a key, a memory that hadn't been that significant, until he recalled, past the towering dark of that night in Ari's apartment, that Jordan had told him that, the day he gave him Grant for his own responsibility. Responsibility. Hostage. With the very proper advice that he couldn't let his temper go again, not with Grant. Possibly Jordan had given him that responsibility completely cold-bloodedly, seeing it as a way to win the argument with a matching temper, which had been, admittedly, out of control. Jordan reined it in for Paul. He had to for Grant. It was symmetrical, wasn't it? God, he thought. There was a saying in Rayzune that a designer with himself for a patient was a damned fool. There was a reason there was a psych overseeing psych operators. There was another saying among designers, to the effect that CITs were a guaranteed bitch-up. He'd had Jordan's temper. He'd traded it for a gut-deep knot, and Jordan didn't get mad at Paul. Jordan just made Paul suffer the effects of Jordan's getting mad at everybody else. Of Jordan's getting mad at himself, very possibly, but mostly just battering himself against anything that opposed him. No compromise with the universe. Jordan was a certified genius at what he did, but Jordan had reached a point with a 7-year-old where he couldn't win the fight. So he'd just shut it down. And Ari, with her own very active temper, had gotten hold of that situation and jerked it sideways, with much more cold calculation and more accuracy, maybe, than Jordan had been capable of using. He'd had a brain. His ideas had been fairly well out there. Jordan had a habit of getting impatient with his what-ifs and shutting them down hard. Damned nonsense. That was what Jordan called his ideas. Ari had called them interesting. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to control the immediate visuals, trying to shut Ari down and get Jordan in some kind of perspective as not a bad man, just a hard-headed one who'd tried to steer him into a Jordan-esque path. And God knew what Jordan's own upbringing had been, a father brusque, emotionally shut down, very much on facts as he interpreted them to be. He had gotten that impression, at least, of the man who was, in a sense, his real father since he was Jordan's. Mother, there had been, obviously, since Jordan himself wasn't a clone, but nobody that had stayed, maybe nobody who'd even been there, no people who died in the early days, sometimes left legacies in lab. Ended up being the gene donors for the foundational ASI lines. Jordan's mother could have been cells in a dish, for all the record he'd ever laid hands on. Didn't make him unhappy, in the sense that he'd always been just as content to be like Grant, who was fairly perfect in his eyes, both motherless and fatherless. He'd always been content to be Jordan's parental replicate. But it was a question whether if there'd been another influence in Jordan's growing up, if Jordan would have grown up with a little doubt that one truth covered everything in the universe. Jordan got the law from his father. Jordan tried to replicate himself. That was the damned key. Jordan hadn't started out with the concept of a kid who'd have his own notions. Jordan had tried to trim off any bits that didn't match him. Had fixed him on Grant the way he'd fixed on Paul, only in that household there'd been room for only one personality, and nobody could argue with it. CIT. Designer. And a thorough bitch-up. No question. Ari could stand him off temper for temper, but she hadn't been able to work with him. She'd conned him, was what. She'd conned Jordan into the whole concept of a psychological replicate, then snatched the result and did a job on it. He lay there, totally null for a moment, asking if it really hurt as much as it once had, thinking that, if not for Ari, he'd have made Grant into Paul. Which couldn't happen because Grant wasn't Paul. And she'd gotten Jordan to accept Grant because it was so damned hard to get an alpha companion, and the labs had only one, that she'd created, knowing right then and there what should have been so clear to Jordan, that Grant wasn't Paul. Grant wasn't compliant. Grant was a fine piece of work, who had taken his own path and already begun to drag a young-born man sideways. Jordan might have laid down Grant's early programs, but not his absolute earliest pre-verbal ones. And beyond that, Grant had just self-directed. psychologically, endocrine level and all, stable as they came, and an intellect that might well get beyond him. Ari's best. Ari's near last project, right along with the design that would replicate herself. Thank God for Grant. Thank Ari. He just had to think what to do about Jordan. And maybe he had to be a damned fool and do a bit of work on himself, try to unwire that clenched up anger and figure out where to send the adrenaline rush Jordan provoked in him. Just thinking about it set him off, and set him to work. Calm down first. Take the energy out of it. Find a place to put it. Don't shut it down. That makes the knot. Find a place to use it. Create. Think. There's energy in flux. There's creative potential in things that don't match. Grant turned over. Are you still awake?
Thinking, he said.
Thinking good things or bad things?
I'm working on that, he said. I'm not going to let Jordan bring himself down. How long has it been since Paul took tape, I wonder?
Probably not in a long while. Grant set a hand on his shoulder. Justin, mess with Paul and you're taking a very large chance. He's not stable, and you're not his supervisor.
He shook his head. I'm not, and he won't trust me. But Paul's storing tension the way a battery stores power. Paul's not right. So Jordan's not right. Jordan's worked Paul, but the conditions Jordan imagines to exist don't. So the world he's made Paul live in doesn't exist. And Paul sees it. I think Paul sees it and doesn't know how to fix it.
Grant considered that a moment. That could be.
You have a sense of him.
I have an as-is sense of him, which I think is accurate. Storing tension, very much so. But the wrong intervention could do damage. Might lead to shutdown. Grant had been there. Grant had been through that. It was Grant's own watershed experience, more so even than the sojourn with the abolitionists.
It's a plan, at least. Jordan's wound tight, protecting Paul, but he's only adding to the tension. There's a hell of a lot wrong in that relationship. They're wound up together. I don't know where to take hold of it. I don't know I should until the chance happens, until I know what Paul's mental state is.
I can't read him well enough, Grant said. The other night, the first night they were in the black and white apartment, Paul was dipping in and out of shutdown, just skimming it, creating his own calm down. He remembered it. He'd taken it for overload, max stress even on an alpha. Listening. But Grant intimated Paul hadn't been listening, hadn't been processing, hadn't been recording at certain intervals.
That's information, he said. Watch him. Watch him. See what you can figure.
I will, Grant said. Just be careful with him.
I will, he said.
He didn't know if he could do anything, that was the thing. Real-time work froze him up. It was a problem that Jordan might have given him, right along with the genes. The stress of it might even be Jordan's problem, which Paul had absorbed. It was a damn interlock. But he had to try. And, God, if Jordan caught him at it. Hell didn't half describe it. He wasn't as important to Jordan as Paul was. He'd accepted that fairly unemotionally, since, in point of fact, Jordan wasn't as vital to him as Grant was, and he knew which he'd choose. Maybe he ought to choose, that was. Maybe he ought to choose, that was. Go to Ari, tell her it wasn't working, couldn't work. Put Jordan back in Planis, give him something to do there, let him and Paul live their lives. But he couldn't do it. That was the hell of it. He was like Jordan, stubborn on an issue, and he had to try. Whoops. Book 3, Section 4, Chapter 4. July 20, 2424, 1722 hours. The item alert was blinking on the screen, and Ari clicked it. Mail alert, it said. Some sender she'd specifically tagged to trigger the alert flasher, and that was a very, very short list. She clicked again, and her breath quickened. Cytine Station in the sender line, Fargon Station as home address via the merchanter Candide, docking in the last 2 minutes. A ship's black box had just dumped its contents to Cytine Station in orbit over their heads, and a longed-for letter, at least one letter, had flown down the data stream to Raziun. Via protocols established in Alpha Wing, a reply to her letter opened the gateway straight to Base 1. Click. 3 letters. One from Oliver AOX Strassen. Ollie was still alive. One from Valerie Schwartz. Her heart danced. One from Gloria Strassen. That wasn't so welcome. But she'd had to write to Gloria and to Julia just to be fair. Discipline. Ollie outranked everybody. She read his letter first. Dearest Harry, it said. Nobody called her dearest, but Ollie did. I received your invitation, and very sympathetically understand the frame of mind in which you sent it, I do think. I remember you as Jane's daughter, and with the utmost affection. But I must decline your kindness on several accounts. First and most of all, Fargon is home now. It was Jane's home and mine. My best memories are here, and I have responsibilities that fill my time very usefully. Ultimately useful to you, I hope. Second, if things are going well for you, your direction is no longer Jane Strassen's, but Director Emery's, and you will be more comfortable in that role if I am not close by to prompt you to be that little girl again. I know you will be as intelligent as the great Dr. Emery. I hope you will be at least as wise, and I hope you will be good. But the meeting cannot satisfy me or you. If I were still Azzy, that statement of logic would cause me no pain. But since I have become CIT, it has to pain us both. Let us remember those days as happy as they were, and keep that happiness in our mutual past, unchanged. I must add one other matter. I know you have invited the Schwartzes and the Strassens to Raziun. I hesitate to be so blunt, but use caution. Jane's relatives have been outspokenly bitter about their forced residency on Fargon. Valerie Schwartz has grown up in close association with the Strassens. His mother is deceased 11 years ago, a drug overdose which is inexplicable as an accident. Young Schwartz may or may not elect to accept your invitation. He is known here in the art community and has a reputation in deep-tape experientials, an art which I have only lightly sampled given my own character and origins. I am advised there are psychological considerations to prolonged exposure to these arts. Please use caution. I enclose files in hopes you are surrounded by competent security. You surely must be, and I hope I know by whom. Ollie had never met Florian and Catelyn. He couldn't have. Except the originals. I do hope you are well, dear Ari. I hope the very best for you. I knew about love before I ever had the final tape, and I have been a very lucky man to have loved Jane and to have loved you, as I still do. It hurt. It stung her eyes, that last. She did understand why he said no. She expected a refusal from him for many of the reasons he'd just given, but not quite that she was, in one sense, just an episode of his life, and that he'd valued a life where she just hadn't been. And she wasn't too surprised about Gloria, who had been a brat, and who was still probably a petulant brat. And Julia was the one who'd had real reason to hate her, for displacing her and her baby and getting them both exiled to Fargon. That Julia had hated her and talked against her was no surprise, and not even unfair in the balance of things. Ollie was just worried about her, was all, because he still loved her. It wasn't as if Julia Strassen was going to launch some interstellar conspiracy against Raziun. But the business about Valerie's mother, and Valerie growing up with Gloria of all people, that was just upsetting. She'd never heard that Valerie's mother had died, and he'd become an artist, of all things. She'd never guessed that, either. She'd never searched him up on the web, not wanting to go down that path and go longing after someone she couldn't get back, and she'd never imagined he was halfway famous. It was the first she'd ever heard of who he'd become, and you needed clearance and funds to do a universal search, which Florian and Catelyn hadn't had when she'd sent those letters. She hadn't asked Yanni, who could have done it. Valerie was Yanni's nephew, sort of, but so far as she knew, Yanni hadn't ever bothered searching his niece up. Yanni had never said, for that matter, how he felt about having his relatives sent off to Fargon, all to bring Ariane Emery up in a bubble free of Valerie Schwartz. Had Yanni resented it? Had he, God, even suggested their exile, the way he probably had suggested sending Jordan to Planis Labs? That was a disturbing thought. She had no window into the time when Dennis and Gerard had run Razun along with Yanni Schwartz, and critical decisions had been made, first to put her with Jane Strassen, and then to take her mama away, and to let her play with Valerie, and then to send Valerie away. Had Yanni consented? Been participant? Instigator? Yanni'd never said. Never, ever said. And he'd known she'd written to Valerie. Hadn't he? She thought he'd known. She hadn't taken any measures for secrecy from him. It could have been a mistake, her visiting the past and sending for people who'd had separate lives for decades. It could really have been a bad, bad mistake. That cold, clammy thought crept through her. She'd intended to open Gloria's letter next, saving the good news from Valerie for last. Ollie's return hadn't worked out, but she stuck to the plan. She clicked Gloria's letter. Dear Ariane, it began on a first-name basis, when to her memory Gloria had been a screaming, red-faced hellion 3 years younger than she was. That made Gloria around 15 now, which was too young for Valerie. So there. Mamma says if I want to visit, I can, so I will. Mamma has decided she's coming with me to keep me out of trouble. I don't remember Razun, so this should be interesting, and Mamma says... Hell, if Julia was Mamma, that was Jane Strassen's name. Her word. But that was the way Gloria put it. Mamma says if we come, it's only because it's round trip and we can get home again, so we hope you don't mind if we just stay a few months. Gloria was uncommonly direct. Ari-like in her bluntness, not too diplomatic, but then she'd never been convinced either Julia or Gloria had anything like Jane Strassen's intellect. Tact or graciousness just were not in her expectations of Gloria. There was a thought, the first time it had ever dawned on her, though she'd had the notion that Julia just wasn't that smart. And Jane had been. And Gloria had been a little squalling lump. Maman hadn't started out wanting her. Maman had had Julia, counted that enough. But they'd handed Jane Strassen a kid who was on her level, plus some, namely, her. And Jane Strassen had accepted her for one reason and been hooked into the most important study project in her long career. She'd taken her in, taken to her, shoved her own biological offspring and her own grandchild off, partly because she'd had to, because Julia kept being a fool and pushing the issue, and insisting on pushing it, which was how Julia had gotten a not round-trip ticket for herself and Gloria to Fargon. So it was true. Maman had loved her, not Julia. Then Maman, Jane Strassen, had gone out to Fargon to live, to spend her last days with Ollie and Julia and Gloria. Maman had been very old and knew she didn't have that long. Julia was the child of her last good decades, tank-born, and Maman had gone out there to live and spend those final few years. How? Had Maman ever warmed at all to Julia and Gloria? How had Ollie fit in, and had Ollie protected Maman the way he'd always protected Maman from untoward incidents? Ollie would have done that. Ollie would have stood them off at the door. And Ollie had ended up director of Razune Space, with all the power to handle anything Julia Strassen could ever think up. That was what. That was justice. Oh, there were questions she should have asked. Oh, there were questions she definitely should have.
So I suppose we owe you a thank you for the tickets, and we'll see you as soon as we tie up a few things here. I've never been on a ship before. Maman said it's nothing much, but I'm excited.
Best thing she'd ever heard about Gloria. Deep breath. She punched the button on Valerie's letter. It exploded on the screen, became white light, a black blot that ran everywhere and left an impression on the eyes, a red, lingering glow. It hurt. The glow had the shape of a face when she shut her eyes. She thought it looked male, but she wasn't sure. It was a furious, murderous face. God, how had Base 1 let that through? On her damned E-trail, that was how, her blanket permission for any letter answering her letter. There was a warning, a cold, chilling warning. Her SIG had power to crack the electronic gates of Base 1, on which the security of all Razune, hell, all Union, rested. And she had to be more careful hereafter. A letter had turned up in the wake of the image, an ordinary letter. "Dear Ari," it said, with that hellish face still blinking faintly red in her vision. Dear Ari, hell, if that damned thing had brought anything pernicious in with it. "Base security search," she told Base 1. "Focus. Candide packet in Base 1. All activity, all files." Base 1 set about its business. The letter remained. "I wondered if you remembered. Clearly you do. Thanks for the offer. It presents me a mild dilemma. I have a reputation here in the art world, and your offer would both bring new opportunities and take me out of an area where I have considerable commercial value. I do have to consider, however, that your patronage is no small matter, and if I could be assured of creative freedom and your patronage during my establishment at Razune or in Novgorod, your support of my work would be invaluable." Not a shred of soft sentiment. Creative freedom. Patronage during his establishment. She let a slow breath go. Temper had gotten up since the fright. Adrenaline helped nothing. "So I will be arriving for an exploratory visit and hope to renew old acquaintances." "Oh, to be sure. Sit in the damned sandbox and I'll lend you my shovel, Valerie." "Oh, to be sure. Sit in the damned sandbox and I'll lend you my shovel, Valerie." Damn your presumption. My patronage. Bloody hell if I'll be used. At first blush, she was just mad, damned mad, as Justin would put it. And then just generally upset. Was that thing, that grinning devil, gone to black in her vision? Was that the experiential art form? Was that what Valerie was now? And connected to Gloria? It wasn't who she'd thought she was inviting back to Razune to do justice for and about. They'd had lives out there at a place that wasn't quite real to her. All these years of her life and theirs had gone by, and Ollie might be the same, and maybe Julia was, but they weren't. Not Gloria and not Valerie, and in directions she hadn't anticipated. She'd made a mistake. But ships took months in passage. Her letters to them had taken months in passage, their replies had taken months coming back, and by the time the reply got to her, her 3 invitees were already on a ship on the way here. Damn. Book 3, Section 4, Chapter 5. July 22, 2424, 0834 hours. It was a luxurious office. It had a view from the cliffs on a window-like screen. Justin liked it. Grant liked it. They were glad it was a feature. There was a little guppy tank in the corner. They'd had to laugh about that. It made this move, the last move, they hoped, a little more thoughtful. And their wall had a seascape, a strange thing to contemplate, sunlight through a breaking wave, vastly different colors than the yellow froth and desolate sands of Novgorod's shoreline, which nobody wanted to visit. It's from Earth, Grant had surmised. It could even have been Novgorod's shore when they first landed. Getting back to that would take the native microlife eating all the terrestrial microlife, and native life had a chance of doing that now. In their own lifetime, one really good thing Dennis had done was join Morryville and Novgorod in cleaning up the Novaya Volga, building the cofferdam and the treatment plant. Probably it had taken the form of a deal, but Razun stayed cleaner, and the river did, each in their own way. Some things did get better. He liked to think of the picture that way. Grant said he liked it. So he could say yes, they loved it when Ari asked the question. Very nice. She wanted her lessons, as she called it, which consisted now of their working over sets. And she brought him things, her designs, her questions. Good questions, that, if there were no Jordan anywhere on the horizon, would have kept him happily working for days. As it was... Ari, he said, when she arrived for her lesson today and settled in with them, supplied with coffee and a morning cookie, and the tranquility of the room notwithstanding, his heart was beating overtime. Doubt about what he wanted to do, doubt about how she'd take it, doubt about what sort of mess he was opening up to her. But he couldn't get what he wanted on his own, and he knew everything it could provoke if it got back to Jordan, and everything it could provoke if Ari got too interested in it. Interested in it. There we go. Interested in it. Ari, I want a particular manual. Say it's an actual current personal manual. It was once confiscated in security, in a computer. Can you get it? She held the coffee mug like a little kid with a cocoa in both hands, and brought it down when he asked that question. We're not talking about my getting grants. No, he said. In point of fact, he was sure she had that. Paul's? She asked, straight to the mark, in a very limited range of likely manuals he'd be interested in, and he nodded. I can crack his storage, she said. No question. I haven't lately. I have the manual. Chilling confession. Honest, absolutely honest with him. He hadn't expected the last, and realized he should have expected it. Probably Razunsek had its own supposedly current copy. Yanni had. Hell, there must be half a dozen copies floating around various offices. It's mostly done in hand notes, he said carefully. I'd be surprised if not. Not surprisingly, she said. I've skimmed it. A lot of cryptic notes, a personal code. Not surprisingly, he agreed. She didn't ask the obvious question. She was being very good. His Ari was being very good, and had several questions, likely, questions that would set her on her own quiet search. We're worried about Paul, he said. Grant is worried about Paul. She looked from him to Grant. Grant said, I'll let Justin do the talking. I want a copy of the manual, Justin said, and I want Jordan and Paul not to know it. You'll have it 10 minutes after I get home. Now, if you really want it. It's possible I can read his notes, he said, feeling ashamed of himself the whole way. Going behind Jordan's back, offering to open up a system that might reveal other things. I used to be able to. If he gave her the translation of the notes, and she might demand them, it would be a Rosetta Stone for the rest, for anything he'd encoded. Total key to anything Razunsek currently couldn't read. And he didn't want to know the rest, and he didn't want to betray Jordan, and he wanted to ask the best mind of this age, and the last one that he could... And the last one... Oh, I see. "It's possible I can read his notes," he said, feeling ashamed of himself the whole way, going behind Jordan's back, offering to open up a system that might reveal other things. "I used to be able to." If he gave her the translation of the notes, and she might demand them, it would be a Rosetta Stone for the rest, for anything he'd encoded. Total key to anything Rezunsek currently couldn't read. And he didn't want to know the rest, and he didn't want to betray Jordan, and he wanted to ask the best mind of this age and the last one what he could do to fix what was the matter with Paul. But doing that would open up everything to her. Not just the manual. All the notes. All Jordan's work. And Jordan was hellishly protective of his ideas, his work, and her getting her hands on Paul. It was Jordan's nightmare. "I'm going to ask you for it," he said to her, "and let me see if I can read it. And I'm going to ask you not to ask me for the shorthand he uses." A little silence ensued. Ari thought about it and had another sip of coffee, one-handed this time, the other hand idle, elbow on chair arm. An attitude so like the first Ari that it chilled. Eyes flicked up to his, and broke contact, self-protective, keeping thoughts private, as she nodded. "All right. Ari, it's not that I don't trust you. It's what I owe him. I won't ask you another question," she said, "and you know that's hard for me. If I can make sense of it," he said, "I may come back to you." "You're good," she said, and oh, those eyes flickered like the activity LEDs on a processor. She was. Processing. "If you do need me, ask, but it's all yours. Justin, if you say good kid, all bets are off." "A good human being," he amended that, unspoken. "You are." "I like that." She smiled somberly. "I take that one. Grant, am I a good human being?" "You're a fine sample of the born man sort," Grant said, not too somberly. Or you seem so to me. It's beyond me to critique beyond that." She smiled. The moment passed. She finished off the cooling coffee and rotated her chair and poured herself another cup. "It's a 2-cup morning. I've been so damn busy with the move that I haven't got a thing done on the last set. I read the last of it this morning, but I've got one I want you to look at." "It wouldn't be Jordan's, would it?" Justin asked. She had her sip. "Actually, it is. He told you about it?" "He mentioned it. I was going to ask, actually." So we're doing a Jordan morning, she said, and pulled out a convenient keyboard and touched the voice button. Called the file, which was beta, and correspondingly large. "That's it. Shall I store to projects?" "Do it," Justin said. "Do you have some particular questions?" "I don't," she said. It's a management tape, the type's capable of an accurate memory and a strong work ethic. It's just typical Jordan. I've looked at his work, at least skimmed through several, and it's not old stuff. It's using the modern interlinks, using them very appropriately. It's a nice nested set of calls that play off secondary sets, don't conflict with deep sets. I'm not finding a... Calm went off. A worried look crossed her face. "Not supposed to..." she began, which meant it was her urgent list, the handful of people who could call her at any hour. And about that time there was a knock on the office door. Grant started to get up, but Florian came on through. "Sarah," Florian said, and the buzz from Ari's comm continued. "Sarah." "Report," she said, and Florian said, "Sperlin is dead." Ari froze just a heartbeat, then located the phone, thumbed it on, and said, "Ari." "Sarah." It was Catelyn's voice. "Florian's told me. Details?" "Found by the maid this morning." Catelyn's voice came through. "Cause of death uncertain.
Last contact yesterday night by the night staff at his residence. That's all that's known currently. Possibly natural causes.
Possibly not, Ari said. Her face was just a little pale. I'm coming home, she said. Sperlin, candidate in defense. Khalid's opposition. The one the polls said was in the lead by a wide margin. It wasn't good news. Justin, I'm sorry, Ari said, and set down a mostly full cup of coffee and snatched up her jacket. She left with Florian, leaving Jordan's file up on the computer. Justin shut it down and looked at Grant. This is bad, he said, and tried to think what the Constitution said about a candidate dying after the vote was taken. If he wins, does it go to his proxy designate, or what? Don't ask me, born man. It's your system. I certainly hope it has an answer. I don't even know if he's got a proxy designate. God, I don't want that bastard in. This is one time I wish the 9 weren't elected by general ballot. He turned to the console. Keyed voice said, Search, Constitutional Law, Elections, Council of the 9, Candidate Death. The computer didn't take long. It flashed up a lengthy piece of legal language. Search in document. If an elected candidate dies, second condition, before official announcement of results of election. Question. Who succeeds? The computer took about a heartbeat. The answer flashed up. 1. Current office holder may hold office for entirety of vacated term. 2. Current office holder A may appoint proxy councillor B, service of B, to run concurrent with A's term of office. 3. Current office holder A may leave office at end of A's previously elected term, in which case the runner-up B in the election may succeed to office and serve for the 2-year term. 4. In the case of death of all candidates and the incumbent, the office settles on the Secretary of the Bureau to run for the elected term. 5. Announcement of results irrelevant. Delivery of all precinct results to Cytine Station data storage constitutes valid election. Exception. Conditions of war or natural disaster preventing the transmission of or timely arrival of precinct results to Cytine Station will, after 1 month, disallow those precincts from the result tally. The tally of results at Cytine Station will proceed on that date, and results will be official as of 0001 hours on the expiration of the deadline for receipt of ballots. Exception. A quorum of precincts 66% must arrive by 1 month after expected date. Failure of a quorum of precincts to report by 1 month after the expected date will invalidate the election, in which case current office holders will continue in office as if re-elected. Precedents. No dates, no instances available. It says, Justin began. I have it, Grant said grimly. A first in Union history, it seems. Jacques is all prepared to resign, Justin said, but the proxy can only be valid if he stays in office. Is that actually a problem? Grant asked. I don't know, Justin said. It's certainly better than the alternative. A light flashed on the screen. Ari. He keyed it. It wasn't a message. It was the arrival of the manual he'd requested. The universe was tottering, peace and war possibly at issue, and she remembered his document. He understood that mind. She probably didn't even strongly register doing it. It was just on her agenda, and it went, probably with 3 and 4 other things and the staff requests, because that mind was clearing chaff fast, not for an emergency response, but for a policy consideration. Call to Yanni was next. He'd bet on it. Book 3, Section 4, Chapter 6, July 22, 2424, 0911 hours. Yanni? Ari said. I have the report. Yanni's answer came back to her. Yanni was already in his office, ordinary day begun. It wasn't an ordinary day.
Natural causes?
Still in question.
I'm questioning it. This isn't good.
Understatement, Yanni said. Listen, I've got to call in to Jacques. Hicks has people on the way to Jacques, who's still at home.
Have we had contact with him?
He knows.
Thank God he's alive. Keep him that way.
We're working on that. I'm ordering up Regenesis 1.
She drew a deep breath. Yanni, what you need to do, you can do from here.
Impossible.
Not impossible.
Appearances, Ari. I have to get to the capital. There's no question of it.
I want agents with Lynch. Fast.
I'm ahead of you on that one. Hicks has got a team headed for his office, too. They'll do all driving, all transport, all meals.
Hicks. Yanni, I'm not that confident in Hicks. He makes mistakes.
It happens to all of us.
I'm saying I don't trust him, Yanni. If we lose Lynch, you lose the proxy and we revert. God, where do we revert? The Secretary for Science?
That would be it, Yanni said, who would immediately reappoint me proxy counselor, and I'd be back in. I'm damned hard to get rid of, so don't worry too much.
Not if you're not in Novgorod. I don't need to worry too much, and I don't want you to go.
The man could have had a heart attack.
And you know he didn't, Yanni. Oh, and you know he didn't. Yanni, I can't lose you. I can't. You want me trying to figure things out day to day and running everything into the ground. You're risking too much. Easier to send me, for God's sake. I'm duplicatable. Your knowledge isn't in the databanks.
Bad joke, young lady, and you're not going. I need to talk directly to Jacques and to Corain and to Lynch. There's no substitute in virtuality for a face-to-face. You know that, or you don't know anything.
Don't read me lessons, Yanni Schwartz, and don't be a damned fool. You know what I can do if you push me, and I'll do it.
Don't be a child. And that is being a child, Ari.
Fine. You're not going.
Ari, do I have to come there and have this out?
Don't bother. Regenesis 1 isn't going to budge off the strip, so you might as well release your call on it. How is it going to look if you go flying in there to consult with the election results not even read yet? We may have to deal with Khalid. Let's not start it off with a media show and get caught in statements before we even know what the man died of. And let's not be caught negotiating with Corain before the man is buried, or shot into the sun, or whatever he wants done with him.
Fine. And when they read the results and it's Sperlin, then what do you think we're going to do? I've got to talk to Jacques, and I can't call him here to do it because we can't have him step down. The man has a lucrative job lined up. He wants it. We bent his arm and got him that job to get him out of the post, and now he's got the offer. He wants it. He wants to be rich and comfortable and safe, and the man who's supposed to replace him just fucking died. Pardon my language, but he died. He may have been murdered, and that's not going to dispose an old man ready to retire to stand his ground.
This is defense. He's a Marine officer.
He did his fighting mostly behind a desk, if you recall.
Well, I don't personally recall the whole war, and you do, and that's just one of the reasons why I need you not dead at the moment, Yanni. Call Jacques. Tell him hold pat. Get them to hold the job for him. If anybody killed Sperlin, it'd look really peculiar if Jacques drops dead next, so he's safe. Tell him that. Maybe that will encourage him.
A silence on the other end. I'm not sure it's quite illegal to bribe Jacques with a job, but it's not the sort of thing we want on the news, Ari.
Well, we already have, haven't we, to get him not to run again? So now we change our minds and we bribe him to keep it until somebody besides Khalid can organize another challenge. Send Frank to tell him so. Frank doesn't get the attention you do.
I'm not sending Frank.
Why not? Because it's dangerous?
Ari, you're taking up my time and I've got business to do.
That plane's not moving. Think of other ways to do it. She hung up on him.
and immediately used Base 1 to put an executive hold on Raziun 1 and to forbid fueling. Then she put in a call to Amy and Maddie and told them individually, but they'd already gotten the news. Amy had called Maddie. Amy and Maddie were both taking the morning off and stood ready to come back home. So did Tommy Carnath, Maddie said, who'd told Misha, and most everybody else must be getting it on the news by now. Sam was still out on site. "Come here," she told Maddie. "Bring everybody." And she called Raphael and briefed him with orders to stand by. Florian and Catelyn were more than briefed. They were in the security station with Wes and Marco, pulling up Novgorod data as fast as they could and monitoring police reports, which was all they could get out of defense. Military police were investigating, standing off the Novgorod authorities. Military police currently under Councillor Jacques' direction. That was a damned uneasy arrangement. But there was one other investigative authority, and that was the Council of the Nine itself, with its Office of Inquiry, which could cross jurisdictional lines and which reported straight to the Council. She called Hicks, personally. "We've heard the news," she said straight off to Hicks. "We want every whisper out of that situation as fast as you get it. Route it to my security office, no matter if it's raw."
"I understand you, Sirrah," Hicks said. "You'll have it as fast as we can produce it. Councillor Jacques has requested a council inquiry, seconded by Councillor Lynch."
Lynch hadn't made a move in months, notoriously didn't act, deferring consistently to his proxy, namely Yanni, who was a councillor in all but name. But Lynch had waked up this morning and made an actual motion to get at the facts, fast and locally. "Lynch is probably scared," she said disingenuously. "I'll imagine Yanni is moving to protect him."
"He is, Sirrah."
"Yanni is in charge," she said. "I'm holding Raziun 1 ready, but it's staying grounded. Security concerns. Protect Yanni. He's not looking at his own safety. I'm looking at it for him."
"We're in agreement," Hicks said. I'll trust if you hear anything, I'll get that advisement."
"I trust I'll hear it from you fastest," she said, and let him figure out what that meant, whether it was a compliment or an order. "Thank you, sir. I'll let you get on it." She broke the contact, sat staring at the police report. The Novgorod police had the body. The Bureau of Defense wanted it. The Office of Inquiry demanded it be sent to the university, its usual recourse for scientific questions, and it was going on 2 hours since a frightened housemaid had found the body. By the minute, evidence was being lost. At least the Bureau of Defense wasn't investigating it as an internal matter, and the Office of Inquiry was going to win. Nobody trumped them, and currently they'd sent a hearse to the district coroner's office to collect Sperlin's remains. The COI had also put a lock on the potential crime scene and taken steps to secure all computer records and recent communications. She drew part of that from the new... Oh my gosh, I just keep losing my place. She drew part of that from the news and part from the Office of Inquiry itself, which she could get to by passive inquiry, just riding Yanni's authority. She didn't lodge any requests. She just read. And frowned at the screen and asked herself what in hell they were going to do about it if something happened to Lynch, or worse, Jacques. "Sirrah," Florian said from the doorway of her office, "the COI has taken physical custody of the body. They'll be at the university inside half an hour. They've assembled a team of experts." "This is just bad," she said. "This is bad, Florian."
"Catelyn would say there's a solution for it, Sirrah."
"What? Go to the station and assassinate Khalid? And then somebody else comes after us?"
We have no idea regarding that, Sirrah."
"Come here." Her tone had been sharp. She regretted it. It was loss of control, but she felt less safe than she had felt a certain number of days ago. People died. Every time things reached a point of decision, people died, and everybody shifted places. Dennis. That was her fault. His own fault. But Patil and Tew upset Yanni's plans for things, and now Sperlin? Everything Yanni had put together was getting hammered by successive events, and the Eversnow business wasn't even underway yet. Worse, much worse, it began to raise a specter of who benefited, and that answer was beginning to shape up in a very ugly fashion. Florian came close. She got up from her desk and hugged him, took his face between her hands, and saw slight puzzlement. "I'm not criticizing," she said. "Doing that is a possibility, a real one, if anything should happen to Yanni. If I take over, they'll be after me, and I don't trust that man."
"We think they already are after you," Florian said. "They surely plan for contingencies. And, more than a contingency, you're a certainty, Sarah. You're 100% certainty unless someone stops you. And we won't permit that. None of us will permit that."
She certainly was a target. The first Ari had been. And it was the same thing she'd said to Yanni. She didn't remember the war. She didn't remember the Treaty of Pell. She just read about it. The fine textures of history just went away. The fabric lost its tensions and shredded until it didn't make thorough sense anymore, and nobody knew now what the deeper part of the issues had been, except what they'd recorded during the actual negotiations. But how could anybody of her generation pull all those hours of recorded history up, and listen to all of it, and understand it? You'd have to live all the hours of all those negotiations and all the simultaneous other hours of every other record, and you still wouldn't get the gestalt of having grown up in it. You knew more, resulting from the perspective of another generation, because the hidden things came out, but you knew less, too, because the context that made it all make sense had gone away. The first Ari had been somebody's target, and she'd died. But how could you know why she'd died without being there? And only Yanni and Jordan, of the people still living, had been real close to the facts. And if Aban had done it, how had Aban gotten the notion? Aban was Gerard's shadow, not Dennis's. And Gerard had mourned the first Ari. He'd loved her. She knew Gerard had loved the first Ari, so how had Aban possibly been the instrument of the other brother's policy? "Sarah," Florian said in a hushed voice, and touched her hair, and looked at her the way she looked at him, only with more awareness than she'd had in the last few seconds. She felt half paralyzed, the way she felt when the brain started working and working and working, pulling things together from one side of flux and the other, nothing matching. Nothing making sense. The first Ari died. Her Florian and Catelyn died. Maman died. Gerard died. Dennis died. Aban died. Seelie died. Tew died. Patil died. Now Sperlin. 7 were killed by violence. 3 had been old. And now there was Sperlin. The odds were definitely not with natural causes, when power passed from hand to hand. "A lot of people have died," she said to Florian. "A lot of people. You can't count Dennis and Aban and Seelie. That was us pushing back when they pushed us. But your predecessors, and mine, why would Aban be taking Dennis's orders if it was Aban that did it?"
"If Dennis ran tape on him," Florian said, "if somebody good set it up. Dennis had a lot of opportunity."
"Was he the only one who could?" she asked. Her hands had fallen to his shoulders. He was a safe haven, Florian was. Who could get to him else? Track that. Fabric of history, all decayed, all the evidence evaporating with every stray gust from a vent. The rime ice melted. The body went to the sun. People went on dying around the hinge points of power. It had gone on a long, long time. Before any time she remembered, certainly.
"What priority?"
Florian asked her. His hands were at her waist. He'd become a young man. He'd become what he was designed to be, and he asked an important question. In the crisis of the moment, with Sperlin dead and Jacques' decisions in doubt, and Lynch possibly next on somebody's list, what priority the investigation of 3 20-year-old murders?
Absolute priority. It was the environment of her life. It was the reason she existed. Because she existed, all the others had died, her doing, or others doing, because of her. Some few were still alive, still in power, in various places. Some of them she still trusted, and that could be deadly. "Hi," she said. "See if it was investigated, that first. Then see how well it was investigated." "We'll do that," Florian said. She kissed him, not for any good reason, except it fuzzed the brain for a moment, and it felt good, and she wanted to feel good for a moment. She wanted to lie to her senses for a moment and say they were all safe. But it wasn't true. The kiss was over, and she sent him off to Catelyn and Wes and Marco, and knew he'd do both. Keep up with what was going on and investigate old history, both, if he and Catelyn had to give up sleep. They weren't safe. And the next few days were going to be hard ones. Dangerous. She wasn't ready to take over. Yanni'd told her that. But events weren't going to wait for her. People were pushing, already, to get places and do things before she could possibly interfere and change the rules. People might die in that push. She couldn't prevent it. That was the point. So far, she couldn't prevent it. And that is where we will call it for today. I'm thinking 3 more installments. Around that, maybe 4 on the outside. Give or take. So we should definitely have it done before the end of the month, which is good. Let's see, let me get one sliced into here for hopefully tomorrow. Tomorrow may be a bust. It is possible. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm hoping it won't be, but it could well be a bust. I will not know until tomorrow, probably, or this evening. So we will find out then. But I'm optimistic about tomorrow. Yeah, probably 4 installments, I'm thinking. Yeah, 4. 4 more installments. We'll get through it. And then, until I have 2 weeks off, I'll do short stories or pulps or something. We'll get it figured out. Anything new news-wise? Let me check to see if my account has been killed by any new copyright strikes. I should probably do that more frequently than I do. Nope. Not yet. I don't think. Oh, somebody's sending me love notes. I'll deal with that later. Anything I need to know here? Nope, doesn't look like it. Not yet. Okie dokie, with that I gotta go. Everybody stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other, and I'll see you all next time, hopefully tomorrow. Failing that,